coast just because of the cap rates are so low in the coasts.
Yeah, it goes further, and in theory does more. So it totally makes sense for. It just makes dollars and cents. There's no other way to put it. Can't really argue with it. I mean, you could argue with it, but it would be useless. So.
Yeah. Can you tell me about your audience a little bit more, just in terms of
Yeah.
the demographic that's listening?
Okay. Yes, and that's okay. One, so that you know, we it's primarily entrepreneurs of various different levels and kinds, meaning they could be anywhere from they woke up this morning and said, you know what, today's the day. I'm actually going to go out there and finally get my business started. That's what I'm going to do, all the way to, $10 million or so of annual revenue. So anywhere along that journey. Now, traditionally, and I find what you do, I find this interesting because traditionally, and again, this is just me, my position, and we're not exactly the go to school, get good grades, go to college type, and definitely not the college loan type. So this is going to be interesting for me and for you, I think.
Yeah.
It's not that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be able to kind of tailor what we talk about to wherever you want to take me.
But if where I want to take you is, if you do go to college, don't get a student loan. That's typically
fine. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I mean, but I'll try to give you my balanced perspective. But yeah, I think college is super oversold. Don't worry about offending me.
Oh, alrighty then. Then we're gonna get along just fine, I guess. Get along just fine. You know what? You probably can't see anything at this particular moment. Give me 1 second. I am going to make it so that you can see what they see.
Okay.
And yeah, so there you go. You should now be able to see, you'll be able to see what they see as well. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so.
And I just noticed one of the signs are crooked. Go ahead.
Well, are people just looking at that wall or something?
Right now they are, because
Okay.
I'm not in frame yet.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Should I turn on my video?
They can't see. And that's what I was saying to you. So even though people are watching right now, they can only hear you. They can't see you. So that way you don't have to worry about it at all. And I can't see you.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that way you can understand where we are. There you go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. But yeah, because we're on an audio only show. All right, cool. Well, then the goal today is to come away with 2 20-minute segments of content. Again, I don't think that's going to be a problem because you have something of an emotionally charged subject right now. Given what's that?
I said, oh yeah, people have some opinions about this.
Yeah, some very, very strong opinions. What's going to happen is that in a moment, there's going to be about 3 seconds of silence. I'm going to come back and do the intro, and then you and I are going to continue talking and it should sound like what would happen at, say, a coffee shop between 2 friends, if you will. So the things that tend to happen during a normal conversation, interruptions, laughter, etc., we're going to totally leave all of that in.
Okay.
If for some reason something too loud and or distracting does occur, what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to snap into the microphone 3 times, wait 3 seconds, and then pick up right where you left off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
All right, perfect. Let me see. Oh, intro. Yes. Now, they sent me a lot of stuff, and I never have time to read it all. So I'm really curious to hear from your perspective. What is it that's important to you that I mention during the introduction?
You can just say Travis Hornsby, founder of Student Loan Planner and host of the Student Loan Planner podcast, a group that's consulted on hundreds of millions of dollars in student loan debt. So you can say $700 million is the number that we've consulted on.
Okay. Okay. And excellent. So, and then after everyone is done listening, where do you want them to go?
Go to studentloanplanner.com and they can send us an email, help@studentloanplanner.com.
Did you say help?
Help@studentloanplanner.com.
Okay. Perfect. Got it. Be able to make all that work. All right. And then 1, 2, 3, towards the end, there's going to be a final question, and then you'll hear me do the intro, and then after that, we'll come back and you and I can debrief about whatever you'd like at that particular moment in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Let's make sure. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right, for the sake of formality, could you do me a favor and pronounce your name, please?
Travis Hornsby.
Travis Hornsby.
Hornsby. Yeah, Hornsby.
Hornsby.
Like horns on a bull, and then B like the thing that stings you.
Man, got it. Yes. Horn. You know what? I'm gonna rewrite that just to make sure. Hornsby. Don't look at that. Look at that. Got it. So Travis Hornsby, that got it, no problem. And then did you have any questions for me before we get started?
No, I'm excited. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Now, occasionally, not always, but occasionally, there can be comments that come in from the people who are watching live. Are you okay to take those questions if that happens?
Absolutely.
All right. Perfect. Come on. Bringing up one thing real fast and we will be set to go. All right. And do it. Hello. Haha. Perfect. I got the website. Excellent. And if I didn't say so, just so you know, I will give you an opportunity to give that CTA of wherever you want them to, or to go to the website, so that way you're expecting it, and it should be rather obvious when I do that.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Here we go.
I might change the CTA, like depending on how the episode goes. I might say like just a specific URL or something.
That's exactly why I said that, because that may indeed happen, and if it does, it's completely fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. I wanted you to, yes. If we end up going there, that's fine. If it comes out something different, also fine. Because the majority of my, I guess I should let you know at least that the majority of the questions that were sent to me, I rarely, if ever, ask them. So
good.
Because I'm
Quiz
usually.
me. Let's go.
Bring
it.
All right, perfect. So yeah, I rarely ever ask them, and I'm listening to what your response is to what I'm saying. That's what determines, where we head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, here we go. And we are at All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cash Flow Diary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we are going to talk about something that, honestly, a lot of people find trouble with, controversy. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a problem that currently exists, and we have to find a way to deal with it. Of course, I am talking, if you read the title, you know that we're talking about student loans today. And for a lot of individuals, this is their reality, and this is something that you're dealing with. You went to school, you got the good grades, and it cost you a ton of money to make all of that happen. In fact, I warned today's guest by telling him, like, look, even in our own household, you can go to college, but if you're going to college, daddy ain't paying for it and you're not getting a loan. So it's a thing, and I know that many individuals listening have this as a challenge, but that's also interesting because, as you know, we're entrepreneurs. When we find a problem, we look for a solution, and that's exactly what today's guest was able to do. I'm, of course, speaking none other than Travis Hornsby. He's the founder of Student Loan Planner, and it happened because he was trying to assist his wife to navigate all of the complex student loan repayment decisions, which many of you may have tried to tackle and have tried to deal with. And like any good entrepreneur, it was born out of solving a problem. And sometimes it's a personal problem, and as in this particular case. And I think that's what we're going to learn a lot today. So for those of you who may be of the persuasion, I'm not going to college, this isn't going to affect me, well, you don't know that. So listen. For those of you who are in the midst of struggling with it, you're definitely going to want to listen, because there's probably a plan. There's probably something there. And for those of you who are still wondering, how on earth am I going to get any business started and what business I should start? My suspicion is that as we learn about Travis's story, you're going to learn some things to look for that could be clues, maybe even in the news, that could help you understand where you might want to get started. So right now, let's get ready to listen, learn, and love Travis Thornsby. Travis, how you doing?
Good to be on the show. Thanks for having me, Jay.
I'm glad that you are here, sir. And as I mentioned earlier, the topic of student loans, man, it's almost like if you could choose any business, why on earth would you choose that one? But we're going to get into that. Now, before we get that far, though, what I want to do is I want to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes, you know, like Batman, Robin, Superman, Spider-Man, etc. You get the idea. Because I think, well, as an entrepreneur, I can envision myself flying around town, saving our customers one sale at a time, but also like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. I mean, if you think about Spider-Man, for example, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, and then one day discovers, I have a superhuman ability because he got bit by a spider, and now he has to make a choice. What do I do with this newfound ability? So my question to you is as follows. Before Student Loan Planner, before helping, you know, your 2,000 clients and consulting on over $700 million of student loan debt, and before just, you know, deciding to be the Chartered Financial Analyst and doing all of the things that people know you for today, what we want to know is, who is Travis Hornsby?
Well, he's a pretty weird dude. Because I was in college.
Okay.
I wanted to be a professor of economics. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, right? And then I took this really intense, like, theoretical math course, and I didn't get an A, which was like this big failure, right? And so I just realized that wasn't my passion. I wasn't watching any college football games. I was just studying all the time, all this complex math, and I said, you know, it's just not what I'm made for. And so then I went into just a different kind of pivot, and I became, you know, a bond trader, right? I went into finance, the practical application side of things instead of the theoretical, right? Because I wanted to get dirty. I wanted to get down in the weeds. I wanted to experience life at its fullest, right? And what I discovered is in becoming a bond trader is it just was not as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be. I was helping people that had a lot of money already. They'd already won the game. So kind of envision somebody like, you know, that's, you know, kind of coming up and it could have so much potential, right? Those are the people that, in my view, I wanted to help versus people that were already multimillionaires, were going to be fine no matter if I helped them outperform the market or not, right? So I traded about $10 billion of $10 billion of municipal bond debt. Yeah, Freudian slip there. We're on our way. But,
right.
you know, I gained a lot of Excel skills. And unfortunately, student loans, you got like 12 different repayment options that exist today. It's super complicated, right? And so I found that my skill set that I developed as a bond trader of modeling complex problems fit really well with this giant societal problem that I first got introduced to via my wife and all of her friends that were looking to me to say, hey, I've got all these different repayment options. I got all this debt. What the heck do I do so I can live a normal life? And so that's kind of how it got started. And then kind of like your analogy about Superman and Batman, right? So they can only save so many people, even though they're pretty legit, right? And so what do they eventually do? You bring on the Justice League, right? And so you have all this big group of people, right? And so that's kind of what happened with our firm. I was doing consults like 12 hours a day, and I said, this can't keep going. And so I met a guy at our co-working space. He became our first consultant. Now we have a team of 3 other consultants besides myself, and we're adding 2 more. So we're kind of growing out to try to help more people than I could possibly help on my own, which is how you really create a business versus sort of being a solopreneur, which is how I started.
Got it. I like this. Okay, so let's back up a second though, because you said something that I thought was interesting. You said you wanted to be a professor of economics.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
There's a story there that I'm like, how did you come? Like, how, most kids go firefighter, pilot, astronaut, professor of economics.
Yeah, well, so I went to college, 2008 to 2012, right? And so in 2008, I was taking an intro to macroeconomics course. And so the professor was this really interesting guy, and he came in like, the first day of class was in August, and in September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed, right? And then all these things started happening in the economy where one day the professor walked in and he like took the textbook, and I want to just say he basically threw the textbook, and he's like, this is useless. All this is wrong now, And so it was so exciting, and I got to work for him, and I did some teaching assistant, research assistant work for him. I was so passionate, so interested in the field of economics, just because like the world was falling down just as I was starting to get interested in this stuff intellectually. And so that's kind of why I wanted to be initially a professor of economics, just because I loved working for him. I saw, thousands of people randomly show up to our university for this little impromptu talk they gave on the economy because people were panicking. And I just thought, wow, this is such a cool world to be involved with. So I went down that rabbit hole deep, and I probably was like a junior, senior in college before I realized I did not want to do that. And so then I pivoted and just started pitching everybody I could to getting a job and doing something more, finance related, because I still love the space. And that's what I ended up settling on, is because I just realized I really like the application of things versus just theoretical stuff.
Got it. Okay. Now, and I'm curious, when it comes to where was college? Like what state, city?
Yeah, University of Florida.
Interesting. So
Yeah, in Gainesville.
how did you? Okay, you have the entire world of finance. You have all of this to choose from, and bonds.
Yeah, it's a good question. So again, it's just kind of what was interesting to me at that point, right? So for example, when I was in municipal bonds, Puerto Rico was having trouble and defaulting. Detroit went through their bankruptcy. You remember that?
Yeah, I mean that's why this is interesting to me. It's like you tackle what some would call literally the most complicated, interwoven things on the planet, and I'm just like, how does he just one day? I mean, because it's not like there was a commercial, become a bond trader. I mean,
yeah. Well, I got accepted to this rotational program, and they put you in different spots in the company, and you have to basically try out at each one to see where they're going to permanently place you after that initial rotational program is done. And so I worked my butt off when we got to this particular rotation, and they wanted to keep me on afterwards. So that's kind of how I ended up in that field. I mean, basically, you have to have luck, but you also have to work hard, right? And so if you can have both of those aligned, then you're going to have some interesting opportunities in life.
Okay. Now, and that's true. From historically speaking, yes, I get you. And it also raises another question, because there's a lot of individuals who, I'll say it this way, who find themselves in situations in which maybe the income that they're earning is a lot more than they anticipated younger, or they have a lot of responsibilities. There are claims on that income. So the idea, I mean, they may have the best idea on the planet, but I think you could speak to something very unique in that they're earning a significant amount of money, and then the idea of going to start a business feels like, how on earth am I ever going to have enough money to live on? What if it doesn't work? Yet this is what you did, So I must understand, how did you decide to give up the secret identity, literally put on the cape and become the entrepreneur, when that would suggest to me that there's the potential for a lot of turmoil during the transition?
That's true. I mean, but a lot of people got to think about what your downside risk really is. That's what a lot of people get freaked out about is the fear of the
Spoken
unknown.
like a bond trader.
Exactly. I was wondering if you catch on that, right? But seriously, like that's I mean that was a wonderful gift thinking like that, right? So think about this, right? What is your downside risk, right? What is the risk that this thing's going to fail and it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket, right? And so for somebody that's going to start a business, if you've got money in the bank, you've got savings, you're not going to be putting everything on credit cards or second mortgage or something like that. Then your downside risk is it fails and you attempted to be an entrepreneur and you go back and take your skills and you go get an amazing job doing something what you were similarly doing, right? You're not going to be super unattractive to the labor force just because you tried to go and start your own business and it didn't succeed. That's a well-worn path in corporate America, for people that do really well. And, it'll teach you something about yourself if you don't end up being successful. Maybe you didn't enjoy it, right? So what I would tell people is you got to get cash in the bank so you can cover at least probably 6 months expenses minimum, but probably 12 months expenses. So just you have a little bit of runway, because that's what really did it for me is the first year and a half, actually, I actually was full disclosure, I traveled the world for a little while. I didn't just immediately go straight into doing student loan planning. I was kind of doing that a little bit on the side for fun, and I was traveling the world. I had plenty of money saved up from being a bond trader, and then basically the woman that I was dating, my now wife, had a conversation. When I asked permission, a blessing to get married to his daughter, basically said, can I marry your daughter? And he said no. And I said, she's Asian American. She's second generation. And he said the reason was because I didn't have a stable income. And so he lit a fire under my butt, and I had just been kind of messing around with it a little bit. And then when he kind of made that threat, I put everything I had into it. I was backed up in a corner, and I had no choice but to be successful. So I think a little bit of it is put yourself in that situation where your family's counting on you. You have to work your tail off. You have to succeed, and you're probably going to.
Wow. He said no.
Yeah,
Oh,
that wasn't what I was
awesome.
expecting, man.
That is so. You didn't happen to record that, put it on YouTube or something, because that would be beautiful.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I can't.
yeah,
I
but
can't
I
do
get
that
it.
to him.
There's always something. So you literally had to decide to become the superhero in that moment. I like it.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Okay, now, as you're deciding, all right, so now you're in this space where you've got to do something. And yes, obviously, you've had some experience doing the student loan planning thing and whatnot, but that doesn't mean by default that that's what you have to continue to do as a business per se. What was the impetus behind going, you know what, I think I can, not only do I have something here, yes, I can help people, but this is actually something I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I just love the transformation that we can do in an hour. I mean, I think that if you think about the way financial planning is set up right now, you pay, thousands of dollars a year, or you have a 20-hour meeting or something, right? And I'm not going to say that change doesn't happen over that, but if you have a system that you refine and you make as, efficient and as impactful as possible, and you try to get the maximum impact on somebody's life with a limited engagement, then you can have enormous positive change, and that's super rewarding. And so, if it wasn't student loans, maybe it would be something else. Maybe I'd have some sort of other problem that I could focus on. But the thing is student loans causes this huge level of anxiety. So from our data, basically people have severe anxiety specifically created by their student loan debt because it's a mortgage on their brain. It's not like you can sell something and get rid of your student loan debt like you can for a mortgage, right? And so that anxiety causes people to make a lot of bad decisions. They don't make businesses. They don't, get married when they want to get married. They don't buy a house. They do all these things, maybe take less risk. And that's not something that you actually even need to do, right? Because somebody that has student loans, a lot of people don't understand, you can pay based on the revised pay-as-you-earn program. If you have federal student loans, that's a 10% tax on your income after about a $20,000 deduction for most people. And furthermore, that payment plan also subsidizes some of your interest if you're kind of low income relative to your debt. So somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur, they can get their payment going on as little as $0 a month while they're trying to do a startup. And that big student loan that was a $500 or $1,000 a month payment actually doesn't need to stand in the way at all of you doing your entrepreneurial dream.
Okay, this is interesting, this thing that you're bringing up, and I want to dig into it more, because one of the things that irritates the tar out of me is, at least this is what I have heard, is how having that student loan obligation can put one in a position to delay things, specifically that where during a time in their life when they should actually be trying to take more risk and build something and create something. Now, I definitely want to dig into that, but you said something about transformation in an hour. Please unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's our student loan. That's what the length of our student loan consult. So we do an hour consult. That's our business model. That's our primary service offering. So that's what I meant by the transformation in hours. We have this form that we've used thousands of times that gets all the facts that we need to understand what somebody's going through with their student loan debt, right? And then during that hour, we give them the plan based off of what we're seeing. And so maybe it's something like you're paying $2,000 a month on your student loans. We need to get you on a different repayment plan to enable you to start that business, right? Or maybe it's you're on an inefficient repayment option where you could get forgiveness when you're not getting forgiveness. Or maybe it's your loan term needs to be refinanced to a 20-year term so you get a low monthly payment so you have the cash flow to do other things that are more important to you. There's all kinds of different things that could happen if somebody's got, I would say usually more than 50,000 of student loan debt is most of the people that talk to us. The people that have less than that, a lot of times you're just talking about trying to get it onto a 20-year type, refinancing term. And so then it's more of like a budgeting conversation, although we do have people that still work with us below that $50,000 level. So that's the big impact is we can take somebody who's just really in a bad place from a mindset problem, and we can change that mindset with math and prove it to them that they're not as screwed as they thought they were. And that enables them to take risks and not have this burden of anxiety so they can do a lot more of the things they want to do in their life.
Got it. And I think I'm starting to understand what you meant by then the mortgage on the brain. Because okay, now you mentioned the word forgiveness. Forgiveness would imply when I hear that, I'm like, does that mean I don't have to pay it back? What are you talking about there?
Yeah, so you can pay based on your income, right? Anybody can do this with federal student loan debt. Private student loan debt, bad news. The only way you get that forgiven is like some sort of state-specific program or some sort of employer repayment program. That's the only way you can get forgiveness on private loans. So we can talk a little bit more about that if you want later. But for federal loans, which is probably 90% of people have federal student loans.
Sure.
The federal student loans, they're held by the government. Okay, the government does not actually care that much about what interest profits they make on the loans, even though people kind of think that. Okay, the government is just basically saying, pay us and don't default. That's what their main thing is. And so the problem is you get all these repayment options. You can pay it you can pay it on a 10-year plan, you can pay it on an IBR plan, you can pay it on all these different plans. So what you can do is you can sign up for a payment plan based on your income, and then after 20 or 25 years, the loans are forgiven. But there's a catch. After the end of those 20 to 25 years, you have to pay income taxes on that forgiven balance.
Oh, wow.
Right? So let's say I got 100,000. I'm paying, and I'm a low-income person, right? So I'm paying 10% of my income for 20 years. At the end of those 20 years, I have to pay income taxes on, say that 100 grew into 200,000. So I have to pay income taxes on $200,000. So that's the forgiveness that's available to literally everybody, regardless of their job. There's another kind of forgiveness called public service loan forgiveness. This is for those people out there in the government or the not-for-profit sector where you do those income-based plans, but instead of doing it for 20 or 25 years, you do it for 10. And that tax bomb doesn't happen because they forgive it tax-free.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm beginning to understand where your ability with spreadsheets comes into play. Because, and I get it, because you're doing lots, it sounds like you would be doing an intense amount of time value of money or calculations in order to help someone make this decision and being able to prove with math what makes the most sense.
Exactly, and I'll try to simplify it even more. Like
or
basically, your student
value.
Student loans are basically a tax, right? Your student loans are a tax, worst case scenario. So that means, if you're making, not a ton of money relative to what you owe, then paying it as a tax is a great deal. You pay about 10% of your income on the loans, and you put away about 5% of your income into investments like rental properties, mutual funds, something like that, so you can cover that future tax bomb. So worst case scenario, about 15% of your income has got to go towards handling your student loans, and that's true for no matter how bad your situation is with federal debt. So that's wonderful because that means that you're just somebody with the higher tax rate, and then your problem is, are you good at investing? Are you saving? Are you trying to increase your wages? Are you trying to make more income? Are you trying to take entrepreneurial risks, that frees you from that student loan burden because your student loans are just a tax. And if you're making so much money that it doesn't make sense to pay your student loans as if it were a tax, then you can refinance it with a private lender at a lower interest rate because you're a better credit risk. So then you can take that loan that's kind of like a tax and turn it into $1,000 a month payment at a 4 or 5% interest rate instead because it's a better deal.
So is this based on like AGI or actual gross?
AGI. So there's all kinds of
on.
optimizations that you can do with that.
Come on, because if you're basing it on AGI and then someone starts to purchase real estate, they can really, quote unquote, make no money for a long time.
Yeah, we have. There's somebody that got professional real estate investor status, and so their AGI is basically like almost nothing or zero.
Yeah.
And so you have that $300,000-$400,000 student loan debt. You can literally pay $0 a month, and then when you understand that the student loan interest doesn't even compound, it grows at a simple rate of interest. That means that worst case scenario in 20 years, they're probably paying taxes on something that's lower than the rate of inflation by a lot, right? So I mean, they're just getting a killer deal from a present value perspective on their student loans that they had from college. I'm not saying that people should do that and take out all that debt with that expectation. What I'm basically saying is if you kind of ended up in a situation where you have a lot of student loan debt because you wish you could have taken a lot of things back, there's nothing that needs to hold you back in life. All you need to do is figure out exactly what to do based off of your situation.
So, okay, Travis, with this being the case, what's really going through my mind then, well, let me ask this question. Here's an idea. Well, it depends on the answer. When that what you keep calling the tax bomb, quote unquote, goes off later, is that treated as ordinary income?
Yeah, you get a 1099-C, I think it is, and so that goes on to your, it's basically like a bonus, right? So there's all kinds of opportunities to figure out ways to do tax planning around that too, and that's like worst case scenario.
You understood exactly where I was headed with that, because if you acquire enough real estate as part of the plan, I can see a situation in which a significant portion of that bomb is negated. I can see a path to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's actually, there's also a loophole for people that are struggling out there called the insolvency exclusion. So basically what this is like if the IRS, if you have forgiven debt, a lot of times it's taxable income under IRS rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have forgiven debt, you have to pay income taxes on that kind of debt. So the thing is if your assets are smaller than your liabilities, then that's forgiven tax-free, right? So there is a loophole out there for people that go through this route and don't have enough assets, compared to their liabilities. So that means that, it's forgiven tax-free. But what I tell people is if you're planning on that you're setting yourself up for a bleak future.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That should not be the plan.
You want to have assets. You want to have a lot of things in your name that you own. And so that's kind of what we're talking about around that ability to get, a lot of maybe losses or worst case scenario, you're just planning to pay that big tax bomb, which, you can do with mutual funds if you're not a real estate person. If you are, then there's obviously a lot of opportunities there.
So okay, all right. If there are so many options, why aren't there more of you and more? Why is this not? It feels like all of these things that you're saying, I've never heard. It's not something that currently invades my life or my space. But when this is brought up most frequently, none of these things, it is portrayed as though there are no options. You were just stuck. Good luck. Have fun. Be warm and well fed. I mean,
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, the problem is these rules are super complicated and they're always changing and they're always getting even more complicated because every time I call this thing the student loan sandwich, right? So every time they make a new loan program, they don't eliminate any of the old loan programs. They just add another layer to the sandwich, right? So you've got all these different layers, which makes it kind of like the tax code. There's all these ways you can take advantage of it, right? And this really has only been around since 2009 when they started doing income-based repayment. So it hasn't really been around that long. And so from a business perspective, like why aren't there more student loan planners? It's because that this space is so unstable that, they could simplify this overnight and suddenly our business is kaput, right? I mean, that's a risk. I don't know if it'll happen or not. But that's not a great place to be investing tons of money. If you're a giant bank wanting to invest billions of dollars, you probably don't want to do it in student loans because it's going to change tomorrow. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's part of it. And the other part of it is, like I said, there's just not an awareness of all these different options because of how complex it is. So it's student loans are a lot like the tax code, but the problem is we haven't created all the CPAs yet because it's such a new thing and it's so complex. It's always changing. It's just really difficult to figure out how to tell people how to do this, right? So there's only about 3 million people with about 100K of student loan debt or more. Whereas like, there's 40 something million student loan borrowers. So a lot of the people out there are just, 30, 40K. And to be honest, as excited as I am about them paying a tax, percentage of their AGI, I mean, honestly, if you got 30, 40K, like I'd rather somebody just get rid of that. I mean, it's probably just a good thing to say eventually you're done with it. It's not on your mind. For the people with the high debts, though, it becomes this extreme thing where if they get it wrong, their whole life feels like it's all screwed up.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are many individuals today who have student loan payments that are greater than their rent payment. It's like, yo,
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of hard to have any other idea about this in that regard. Now, I'm curious, your company, Student Loan Planner, would the word planner to me would mean, or at least connotate that this is something you do before an event happens. Most of everything that we've talked about is after you've already gone down the path of doing a student loan. Here's how you can work with it. Is there anything you guys do on the other side?
We do actually on our site with the Hire Us kind of part of our website. There's like a drop down that says basically before you have debt. So we do pre-debt consults. We try to do this mostly for people that are thinking about borrowing huge amounts of Parent Plus loans or going to graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
So we do those pre-debt consults. Now the interesting thing is people book a plan. They pay for advice when they have pain. And before people take out all the debt, there's no pain, there's all optimism, right? There's no reality check about what their income was going to be, about the debt is. And so that's why we see probably 90%, 95% of the things of the plans we're making are all after the fact, because that's when people start getting the pain is when they get their bill in the mail from their loan servicer.
No doubt. I mean, yeah, of course. That's when the pain would be the greatest at that particular moment in time. So I'm curious to know, when it comes down to it, you guys, like, is it just you just catch up with your customer once and you do this and that's it? Help me understand because it's not like the student loan goes away at the end of that hour.
Absolutely.
What else happens?
We're working on a membership model for follow-up support actually as we speak.
Got it.
And what we've done until now is we've had an availability to book another call for another fee. Because we're not charging thousands of dollars, we're charging a few hundred. So that's what we've done so far, and we've had several people take us up on booking another call when something changes. But what we found is I think that people really want, more of that forum type environment, being able to do the free annual checkup that's included in their membership. That's kind of what we're hearing from our clients and our readers. So that's probably the direction that we're going to be heading, so we can, be able to support those people through the life cycle of whatever they're going through with their student loan debt, and also be able to be profitable as a business.
This is interesting. Like, so let's pretend you're meeting someone new, because I'm really curious. When they go, so what do you do? And then you tell them, what do they normally say? Like, what's the response? Like, what?
They're like, oh man, you must be having a bad day every day, because student loan debt, I mean, it's stressful. It is super stressful. I mean, some people are kind of like, so you're like, I try to just explain it as like we're a financial planner that does one specific thing, because that's the easiest way to explain it. If I'm trying to have a short conversation, that's what I like to tell people. But if we're trying to have a longer conversation, we basically remove that anxiety so people live their lives the way they want to live them, because they're just not aware of all the options that are out there to eliminate those problems.
No. I mean, very few. I mean, most of everything that you've said I've not heard of, but I have no reason to have heard of it. Yet, at the same time, the information that I have seen has always just said, good luck. And which is why my position has always been, like I said, you can go to college if you want to, but daddy ain't paying for it, and you're not getting a loan. Because we're just not going down that road. Okay, so if you can find some other way to make it happen, knock yourself out. So I'm curious, in any of the planning side, like before the debt is done, do you guys help and find ways to avoid student loans completely?
Well, the thing is there's a lot of websites that are specialized in doing that already that we'd rather send people to than create that ourselves. So, there's like, various like college planning sites. There's scholarship sites, so if some people reach out, like we're going to try to direct them to the right place for them to be, and if it's not us, so we're just not, FAFSA experts and scholarship experts. That's just not our expertise. It's the complex repayment options. And so that's what we try to do. We try to stay in our lane. A lot of entrepreneurs, they try to kind of take up all 8 lanes of the freeway. You know what I mean? And that's a little bit tough to do if you're not already a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah, no, totally understood and 100% agreed. So as we wind down here, I know that there's a number of people who probably, have at least one question they want to ask you. So what's going to be the best way for them to catch up with you guys, figure out what's going on, or maybe even see if you guys can help them with their situation?
Absolutely. So you can check out studentloanplanner.com/help. So check out that URL. You'll learn about what we do, see if it's a fit for you. There's a contact button on there that you can hit us up and just kind of figure out like whether or not we're something that could help you in your life. And then if you want the free stuff, the Student Loan Planner podcast, we interview people all the time, give away a lot of our secrets. If you're, strapped for cash, do that option.
Yeah, no, totally understood. Because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is helping those in the marketplace get closer to what they want. And what I'm hearing you say ultimately is, even if you have a student loan of some kind, it doesn't mean you have to necessarily delay some other plan or pay that opportunity cost of delaying some other plan, which it's not a message that's very common right now. So I definitely am excited that you guys are out there doing what you're doing. Now, as we end, I got a final question for you, because I'm curious to hear what you would have to say, especially given your own personal experience and just understanding or having an insight into how student loans affect so many individuals. People started this particular episode in one particular spot or another, and now they've moved, to a different spot. Maybe now they just feel relief. They're like, oh my God, there's something, that can help me. And they're at what I like to call the precipice of decision. Now, like I know, that during that moment, as humans, when we get to that line, we always have a companion, and that companion reminds us of how it won't work, or, oh, that's not for you, and you're just going to be stuck with the student loan, and really, there's no help for you. It says all the things that are literally contrary to whatever it is we just received in terms of information. And for some people, they're even related to, that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're going to follow through, and they're going to do so, Travis, in the next 24 to 48 hours. So my question to you is, what should they do?
What should they do in terms of getting a plan?
Period. I mean, they're at this state right now. They've got that proverbial battle going on in their mind. Maybe even going, man, I should bring this up to my spouse, but if I bring this up to him, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they're the one who doesn't have the student loan debt. But do you understand where I'm coming from?
So if you don't have a plan for your student loans, like, if you got your plan, you're happy with it, you don't need a second opinion, good. I mean, that's not what we're trying to do is take over everybody's lives, right? But here's the thing. If you don't have a plan, you have a financial cancer on your life, okay?
Wow.
And this financial cancer on your life can prevent you from doing all these things that you want to do. And let me ask you this. Are you the surgeon? Is your spouse or your significant other or the person in your life, are they the surgeon, okay? Do they know all of the different rules and the complexities, and do they know the way to cure it, okay? Ask them, right? Ask them, there's, bazillion different ways to pay this back. There's all these complex rules. Are you going to go and learn all of it for me, right? Are you going to go to medical school and do the surgery that's going to remove my cancer, right? And if they're not going to do that, or if they're humble enough to realize there's a whole heck of a lot that they don't know about this stupidly complex system that we have in America, all right, that you need to get somebody in your corner versus be it free content, be it getting a paid plan or something. Do something and get off your butt, because the people where it gets really bad are the people who act like they do the ostrich plan. They stick their head in the sand and they pretend that nothing is wrong, right? And that's the way that you're going to pull your head up one day, and it's just going to be this giant mess, and you're going to have such a hard time getting out of it, right? So you're thinking about what that action needs to be. The action is take action and just learn. At the minimum, go learn. Listen to all these free resources. I mentioned our podcast, right? If you're broke, right? Reach out to us even if we can't help you, like you're in deep default or something like that. I know a massive network of attorneys out there that only specialize in student loan debt. Just recently we had somebody that hadn't made a payment in 7 years. She had passed the statute of limitations and she got her debt forgiven, and it was a private student loan debt, and that almost never happens, right?
Wow.
So I don't care if you're struggling because you're making $10,000 a year and you've got $100,000 of private loans, or if you're a brain surgeon making, $1 million a year with $1 million of student loans. We've helped everybody in between, right? So reach out. You don't have to pay us anything unless you want that custom plan. And if you're not looking to pay, like, we can try to connect you to something that can help you. So don't just sit around pretending like that person in your life or you are going to be that surgeon that's going to get the financial cancer out of your body. You got to get help.
Wow. I love the passion that you bring to this. It's so crazy. It's like that's the fun part about meeting so many entrepreneurs, is like all of us, we have a passion about something, and it could be something, it could be anything. And I can hear it in your voice, the concern and the care that you have, for lack of a better way of putting it, to heal people. And I like it a lot. I definitely, as I said earlier, appreciate what you guys are doing of creating that path and standing in that gap and providing something that's, again, not common, but yet needed. So thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cash Flow Diary, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to studentloanplanner.com/help. Why? Because you need it, or you know someone who needs it. I mean, just slide into the DM and send them that link. Say, hey, check this out. I just heard about this. That's fine too. My point is, you know someone. Even if it's not you, you likely know someone who is trying to tackle this problem, or maybe you know someone who's playing the ostrich. Either way it goes, there is an answer, and that's just encouraging. And for those of you who are looking to build your business for the first time, maybe you don't have the student loan debt, but here's the thing you can do. Go look at the news. What is in the headlines? Because maybe if you can solve one of those problems, your business can be born. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Until next time. All right, we're good. How are you, sir?
Cool. Thanks, Jay. That was fun.
Yeah, no problem. So we're going to get to doing what we do and putting this, doing all the post-production and stuff. My guess is end of October, November is probably when this will be about, and then obviously our staff will let you know once this goes live.
Absolutely. We'll promote it when you let us know.
Yep. Did you have any other questions, comments, thoughts for me?
Just, I saw you have 350 units. That's amazing.
Well, I'm sorry, what? Oh, got it. Yeah. I'm like, what is he looking at right now? They're at our highest, we were a little over 4. We need to update that. We have now switched to short-term rentals, and that's where we tend to focus because, again, very similar to you being in Missouri, we were doing lots of stuff in Colorado, Tennessee, etc. So now we're more focused on, honestly, California's and the coastal, more expensive real estate. So there's cell phone towers, all kinds of interesting things. But yes, real estate is where we live all day long.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of people that have the big debts, like the dentists and the lawyers, and those people want to invest in stuff anyway. That's not the stock market. So this professional real estate investor status, if you could teach them how to do that, that would be big time.
That's totally my world, man. That's literally. That's my world. So as soon as you said, that's why I asked about the AGI, because I was like, wait a minute, if this is based on AGI, we can totally crush this right here.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know. And a lot of people don't know that. So, very few people know that you can pay the loans based on AGI. So, that's a big time thing that you could probably tell the community at some point where you're trying to do the coaching.
That's a sick advantage. That's just, I mean, that literally, like if I had a camera angle close enough, you would see that I have goosebumps on my arms right now. Because
Yeah, I mean, so just tell them revised pay as you earn. That's the payment plan that has the best interest subsidies. So, if somebody's trying to get involved in real estate, just tell them revised pay as you earn. And then they're always looking at prior year AGI, and they can actually get that updated if they have a drop in income. Like if they decided to quit and they're doing a new thing, they can get that updated with a lower payment. They're only required to update that once a year. So it's always looking at past year AGI, and they're calculating it based on that. So you can have, 100, 200,000. This is just for federal loans, but that's most people's student loans is federal loans. So you can go there and get them on that revised pay as you earn and get them professional real estate status. And then all of a sudden, they can be doing, part-time work as a dentist, and focusing on real estate where their passion is maybe, right? And then they could be paying nothing on their student loans.
Well, what I was just thinking is, because in my world, it's you're going to buy a 10-unit building and then a 20-unit building and then maybe a 50-unit building, and that can be quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 4. So if they're going to do past years, and you're saying we can update it every year that they don't, if they want to still be that dentist or whatever it is that they're doing, we can just continually obliterate the AGI at the same time. I mean, literally maintain both. That's what's going through my head.
Yeah, you can. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities
here. That's
here.
Crazy.
So, yeah, it's pretty exciting, and at some point maybe they'll catch on. The government will, right? But I mean, I think that contractually they have these deals like in the promissory notes of the loans, which is really important to look at when you're looking at debt. Like, what is the contract, right?
Sure.
So the bond trader days,
right?
Look at the contract,
right?
And so it's literally, those terms are literally spelled out in the contracts. So I mean, they might try to change it and make it tougher for future borrowers, but for people that already have the debt, I mean, this is probably pretty rock solid based off of what the contracts say.
Wow. Okay. Awesome, sir. Yeah, like I said, this is a completely different perspective. This did not go like I thought it was going to go, which is great.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad you guys are out there doing what you're doing. Like I said, let us know if we can be of any further assistance, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
No problem. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.